You ever just wake up and just feel like you're on, not really on cloud nine, but just feel like you're ready to attack the day? That's how I felt waking up on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon and it's Tuesday morning. And this morning when I woke up, I just felt good. I felt like I was ready to rock and roll, ready to do some Pigskin Frenzy and do more spring outlooks. And for those who say that we don't cover the group of five on this show, one, we did last season, but also we're doing it even more with our spring outlooks. Our spring outlooks. Yes, the group of five is upon us. We are talking about Boise State, Memphis, UNLV, and Tulane. And we got to keep an eye out on Memphis because Memphis, that's a team that's going in underrated in 2025 and has some talent. So we're going to talk about that here later on in the episode. We have more spring outlooks. All the teams that I just mentioned in previous episodes for spring outlooks, after April 10th, we start our spring results. So get ready for that. A little bit of a plug there on this intro, but we are so pumped for spring outlooks and for more coverage of spring football, for college football. Group of five, here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Pigskin Frenzy on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I'm Joel Norris, and whether you're watching on YouTube, listening on Spotify, listening on Podbean, you're listening on Apple, a big thank you for taking some time out of your Tuesday to just sit back, watch, and listen to some college football coverage presented by me. Now, for watch it on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like each episode, leave comments down below. Spotify, Podbean, and Apple. All you got to do is just share around with others and follow on there as well. X and Instagram at Pigskin_Frenzy. Follow, like the pages there. You're going to get episode updates, news and highlights from across college football. You're going to get trivia questions on Instagram stories. Go and answer today's college football question as well as all things to date and exclusive content from Pigskin Frenzy. Guys, there's our website, www.pigskinfrenzy.weebly.com. There you'll find all things up to date for Pigskin Frenzy. You'll find a home and about me page. Learn more about me as your podcast host. There you will find a platforms page, all the platforms I just mentioned. There is store and affiliations. More on that coming soon as we continue to regularly update the website for Pigskin Frenzy. There's also the contact info home on the Home and About Me page. There's a name, email question. I'll answer it on air or off air if need be. All that and more on the website, www.pigskinfrenzy.weebly.com. Guys, college football, here we go. Spring football. We've been doing our spring outlooks. We have done, I think, Florida State, if I could try to name off these, Florida State, Purdue, Indiana, Ole Miss. We have done South Carolina, Clemson, LSU, and Alabama. We have done Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, and Illinois. Now we're doing a group of five edition of spring outlooks. We have four good teams that could vie for a spot in the college football playoff in 2025. I'm ready to rock and roll with this. I'm so excited. We got Boise State on tap from last year, the defending back-to-back Mountain West champions. We also have a team that went to a college football playoff with Boise State against Penn State last season. We have their counterpart and their runner-up in UNLV on back-to-back years. We also, under new head coach Dan Mullen, we're excited to look at their spring and talk about them heading into the 2025 season. We also have Tulane, a team under John Summerall entering his second season, with Tulane going back to the American Conference Championship last year, even though they went like 8-5 and they were in a rebuilding year. Shocking and surprising. And then you have a team that is underrated and who could have made it, but is just coming just short of making the mark and going to the American Conference Championship. That's Memphis. So we're going to talk about Ryan Silverfield's squad here in this spring heading into the 2025 season. All that and more coming up for Pigskin Frenzy. I'm excited. I know you guys are excited. I love spring football. I'm ready for it on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. Here we go. Let's kick it off with a team that made the playoff last year and is the back-to-back Mountain West champions and in Boise State. Boise State, led by head coach Spencer Danielson, a man of faith. I love me some Spencer Danielson. Hopefully we can get him on the show one day for Pigskin Frenzy. A man of faith on and off the field. His character embodies just hard work, strong ethic, and a man of faith. I admire what he's done on the field and off the field. I know that he's a believer in Jesus, and that is what we are about on this show. So we respect and admire Spencer Danielson, and he's instilling that into his program, which I admire about Spencer Danielson and the Boise State Broncos. So you have that. and you have that off the field. This is another reason why I wanted to do a spring outlook on Boise State. Everybody in Albertson Stadium's getting hyped. They came off of a great season. They are back-to-back Mountain West champions, made it all the way to the Fiesta Bowl quarterfinal college football playoff against Penn State. Did they lose? Yes, it wasn't pretty, but they had a good season, and they went all the way to the playoffs on New Year's Eve, and they made it that far. So it's like, what are you going to do now, and how are you going to level up? Can you make it even farther? And that is why we're talking about Boise State on this spring outlooks, and we are ready to rock and roll with this. Spencer Danielson, and you got head coach Spencer Danielson, offensive coordinator Nate Potter, and defensive coordinator Eric Shenander, all back on tap. Spring game is April 19th. They have elected to play their spring game. They said that they are about community, and they are about trying to show the people of Boise, Idaho, and Albertson Stadium that we are trying to show them a look ahead of what they can expect for 2025. So more exciting things to come for Boise State in the Group of Five and in the Mountain West. He's excited about it. I'm excited about covering them for this spring, giving us our outlooks on what we want to see out of Boise State this spring, and we're ready to rock and roll. So for Boise State, and for them, they came off of a great season led by running back Ashton Jeanty, who is now off to the NFL. We're going to get to that in a minute. You got quarterback Maddox Madsen, who was a dynamic quarterback for them, but you also had a run-first approach as well. So I'm curious to see. They won all those games. They even went to the Mountain West. They beat UNLV in Las Vegas, and then they ended up turning around and facing them again in a rematch, and ended up beating them at home for the Mountain West Championship. So Boise State's a solid football team, lost a heartbreaker to Penn State, but with that deep-rooted faith in Jesus, they believe that they can get back once again to the college ball playoff. They are ready and rocking and rolling. They're excited. They have a team, and Spencer Danielson is confident in his football team. So for Boise State, for them, what can we expect during the spring and heading into the 2025 season? So number one thing that I want to see out of out of Boise State is who replaces Ashton Jeanty at the running back spot. Number one, that's the number one thing. That's the obvious question. You had second in Heisman voting for Ashton Jeanty. And I voted for him. I voted for Ashton Jeanty. I thought he was going to win the Heisman Trophy and should have won the Heisman Trophy. Nothing against Travis Hunter. I think if there was a year where you would split the trophy and have two awards given out, like a co-Heisman winner, this year would have been it with Travis Hunter and Ashton Jeanty. Ashton Jeanty was an amazing running back prospect, probably one of the best running backs we've seen in college football in quite some time. He was doing things that we haven't seen since Barry Sanders, and it showed. He averaged 180 to 200 plus yards per game. It was unbelievable, and he ran the rock. He had an average of carries of 20 to 30 plus carries a game. It was unbelievable. He was pretty much the majority of their offense. It was a heavily run first offense. Ashton Jeanty was destroying defenses in the Mountain West. He did really well. He didn't do the norm against Penn State, but he still put up 104 yards against Penn State. A solid Tom Allen Power 4 Big Ten defense. And he ended up finishing quite well, at least on paper, and he had some breakout plays in that game as well. So Ashton Jeanty was a big part of that Boise State Broncos offense. So who replaces him? There's a two-parter to this question as well, as we get our second outlook for Boise State. But the number one, who replaces Ashton Jeanty in this offense? Who replaces and takes up that mantle? You really can't replace an Ashton Jeanty, but you can, try to write your own story at the running back position. And who's going to be that main go-to guy at the running back spot for the Broncos? I look at a guy like John Braze Dubar. John Braze Dubar, Jr., 6 foot, 205 pounds out of Anna, Texas. He can be a solid running back choice for this Broncos team. He looks like he could be the guy that can carry the load and kind of not really replace Jeanty, but write his own story and write his own mark in the running back spot for the Broncos. I'm curious to see what the running backs are going to do behind Dubar, and I think that he could be the guy that you can look out for who could really take up that mantle and carry a lot of the load for this Boise State offense under Nate Potter and Spencer Danielson and company, relieving and getting some of that, creating some of that running space that Ashton Jeanty did, but also, taking up where Ashton Jeanty left off, or trying to take up where Ashton Jeanty left off. So Jombres Dubar could be that good option for Ashton Jeanty. Who really replaces him at the running back spot, and who steps up for him and becomes the next running back, or fills that void at running back during the offseason and heading into the 2025 season for the Broncos. So that's number one, and what I want to see out of their spring there. Number two, two-parter. Is Boise State under Nate Potter going to keep going and keep running the rock and being a run-first team? Or are we going to see Maddox Madsen take up the void and become that dynamic playmaker, run the ball a little bit to set up that pass, right? Because they were always, throwing the ball, but also trying to set up the run as well, mainly for Ashton Jeanty. Are we going to see Maddox Madsen step into his own, become that championship-level quarterback? I kind of talked about that with Luke Altmaier, but, is he going to become that championship-level quarterback, and is Maddox Madsen going to be that guy to be that dynamic playmaker for this Boise State offense and be a pass-first team, run the ball to set up the pass type thing? And are they going to change their scheme to more of a pass-first approach? That is number two, and that's what I want to see out of Boise State. Are they going to change that void and try to change their game plan and their approach now that Ashton Jeanty is off to the NFL? So that's number two for the Boise State Broncos, and what I want to see out of this team as well. That's number two. Number three, what's going to happen at secondary? Who's going to add some more depth at the secondary spot, especially behind Jeremiah Irby at defensive back. 6'2", 182 pounds, senior coming back for this secondary, for this defensive backs team out of East Palo Alto, California. Going to be interesting to see who fills the depth behind him and who steps up and takes up that mantle in the secondary. I kind of want to see who, especially at the nickel spot at the secondary, I want to see what happens there for Boise State and who adds some of that depth for this Broncos team. Jeremiah Irby, good team, good solid leader for this defense, good defensive back. I want to see what he does. Not only that, but who add some more depth and who helps him out at the secondary spot this spring and heading into fall camp and into the 2025 season. That's the third outlook that I got for Boise State in this spring. So that's really all I got for Boise State, and that's my spring outlook for Boise State. Number one, who replaces Ashton Jeanty and who takes up that mantle at the running back spot? Could it be a Jombres Dubar or somebody else for this Boise State team? Number two, are they going to reverse back and try to reverse course and go to a pass-first system with Maddox Madsen and let him be the dynamic playmaker? Or are they still going to be a run-first offense under Spencer Danielson and Nate Potter? That's number two. And number three, last but not least, who's going to add some more depth to that secondary, especially at the nickel spot under Jeremiah Irby and rotating in and out with him on that defense? They are electing to play that spring game. April 19th, Boise State spring game. You're not going to want to miss it. They are all going to be there in Albertson City and packed out. Go see your Broncos there. So that is Boise State. Let's go from the Mountain West and go to the American Conference, and let's talk about the Tulane Green Wave. John Summerall entering his second year as head football coach of the Green Wave. He was in his first year coming from Troy, replacing Willie Fritz, who was now in Houston. John Summerall, a solid head coach at the Group of Five level. He has done an amazing job in college football. And let me go on and tell you something. John Summerall is no joke. He was rebuilding that team last year. They went 8-5 overall, and they still made it to the American Conference Championship, okay? So with the talent and under the rebuilding year and adding some more depth and some more recruiting classes in the portal as well, what is John Summerall and this Tulane team going to do in year 2, in year 3, and year 4 in the American Conference? John Summerall can do some exciting things with this Tulane Green Wave team. John Summerall is the head coach. For this football team. Under there, they have offensive coordinator Joe Craddock back and defensive coordinator Greg Gasparotto there as well. They have a spring game on April 19th. You're not going to want to miss it if you're the Tulane Green Wave and if you're a Green Wave fan. It wasn't the best start of the season, but it was a good start of the season. They played the teams close, but they also went 8-5. It was a rebuilding year, but the thing is, they still came close to, they went to the American Conference Championship and played Army. They got beat, but they made it to the American Conference Championship. Not a good ending as well. They had the Gasparilla Bowl against Florida and got beat pretty good, but it's still an 8-5 season, an American Conference championship runner-up team, and they are still climbing and building towards getting to an American Conference championship once again. So we're excited to see what Tulane does under John Summerall in year 2. And there's a lot of questions, especially at the quarterback spot, and we're going to have to look at that and see what's going on there. So to continue our outlook and to go with our spring outlooks heading into the spring and into the college football season, the number one thing that we can talk about with Tulane is this. Who is going to take that mantle at the quarterback spot? Darian Mensah is now at Duke. He transferred to Duke. The highly touted freshman quarterback from last year is now at Duke. Who is going to take up that mantle? You got 2 veteran presents from the transfer portal that you added, Donovan Leary from Illinois, and you also got TJ Finley, a multi-time transfer quarterback now in New Orleans. So you got those 2 guys at the helm. Who's going to take that leap in the quarterback job under Joe Craddock in his offense? What's going to happen there? Who's going to take that leap? You got Leary. You got Finley. If you want to look at who I think could be the guy, I would take a look at Donovan Leary. Donovan Leary. He has a shot at being, quite honestly, Donovan Leary, the truth for this team. So let's see what Donovan Leary does. Let's see what TJ Finley does. Who takes that leap in the quarterback spot for these 2 teams? So that's number 1 for this team. Number 1, who takes up the mantle for the quarterback spot? That's number 1. Number 2, what's going to happen at the receiving spot, and who do you have, throwing, who's going to help out Bryce Bonahan at the receiving spot? I look at guys like Jimmy Callaway, redshirt senior from Louisville, and I look at guys like Anthony Brown-Stevens from Kentucky, redshirt junior, stepping up at the helm with Bryce Bonahan there, helping out in the receiving core. Good slot presence, good deep outside route presence. I think those 2 guys can help out in the receiving core. I want to see the guys that they are throwing to him this year. Who's going to have the depth of the receiving position is what I'm curious about for this Tulane team. And in this spring for the Green Wave, let's see what happens there. Who is going to help out at the receiving spot? And that is what I'm curious about there for my second outlook for the Tulane Green Wave. Number 3, last but not least, who replaces Mekhi Hughes at running back? You got 2 guys that I think of that could be a good fit. You got Zuberi Mobley, running back out of Miami, Florida, transferring in from Northwestern and Florida Atlantic, redshirt senior. He could be a guy that could really help out in the ground game, replacing that presence that Mekhi Hughes brought. He is now at Oregon. So enter Zuberi Mobley. He could be that guy, 5'10", 196 pounds for the Tulane Green Wave. I think that could be, honestly, a good option there for this team. You also got Arnold Barnes III from Booker T. Washington Jr. out of New Orleans, Louisiana, hometown kid. You could add a 1-2 punch combo in the Green Wave offense as well on the ground game, replacing Mekhi Hughes. So you got 2 backs there. Who's going to bring that speed, that power back, that presence, that elusiveness that Mekhi Hughes brought to this Green Wave offense? Who's going to take up that mantle and step up? Arnold Barnes III is 5'10", 216 pounds. He's got a good power and elusiveness behind him. Zuberi Mobley has that speed behind him. Who can bring up and take up that mantle on the ground game for this Tulane offense this spring? So that's the 3 things that I'm looking at in the spring outlooks for the Tulane Green Wave. Number 1, who's going to take that leap in the quarterback competition? Is it going to be TJ Finley? Is it going to be Donovan Leary? Let's see there. Is it in the receiving core? That's the number 2 that I got for the spring outlook in the receiving core. Who is going to take up that mantle and help out and add some more depth to that receiving core for the Tulane Green Wave offense? Then number 3, who's going to replace Mekhi Hughes at running back? Can it be Arnold Barnes III? Can it be Zuberi Mobley? Let's see there in the running back space for this Green Wave team. The Tulane Green Wave has the spring game on April 19th as well. They are ready. They're fired up, and I'm curious to see how they're going to head into the spring and how they're going to look at this spring and heading into the 2025 season. We will have results on them within the next few weeks, along with Boise State and the next 2 teams that we're talking about coming up. Two more teams, and we're going to go back to the Mountain West with this one, number 3 here for us before we conclude with another American Conference team. Number 3, going back to the Mountain West, is the Mountain West runner-up in back-to-back years, and that's UNLV. The Rebels of UNLV out in Las Vegas. I'm fired up to see what they're going to do there. Barry Odom was the head coach of this football team for the past couple of years. Out is Barry Odom. He is now at Purdue, and now we enter Dan Mullen. Legendary Florida coach, legendary Mississippi State coach. He is now at the helm for the UNLV Rebels, entering his first season. I tried to look at a spring game for them, and I do not see one. It is interesting. There's a lot kept in the dark about their spring, but nonetheless, we're going to talk about their spring practice. We're going to talk about them and what I want to see out of the spring there. You got guys who are, they got talent from the portal. They have guys that are on staff there that are great now that Dan Mullen has brought in. It is electric. Dan Mullen, head coach, is now in his first season. He brought in offensive coordinator Corey Dennis from Ohio State, who was under Urban Meyer as well. You had guys who he coached C.J. Stroud. He coached Dwayne Haskins, to name the few, at quarterback. So he will be the quarterback's coach and offensive coordinator for this UNLV team. Excited to see what Corey Dennis brings to the team in UNLV. Then you got defensive coordinator Zach Arnett, former head coach of the Mississippi State Bulldogs and former defensive coordinator under Mike Leach at Mississippi State. He is now the defensive coordinator at UNLV. Good hire, I believe, even though you're thinking he's not a good coach. He's not a good head coach. You guys, he's not a good head coach, maybe, but he's a good defensive coordinator. Let's give him another shot at defensive coordinator because he did some good things under Mike Leach on defense. So you got that, and then you got a loaded team as well coming in. So the outlooks that I got for Dan Mullen heading into this UNLV team heading into the spring, but not only that, heading into the college football season as well. Number 1, the quarterback competition. Who replaces Hodge Malik Williams at quarterback? You got Alex Orji, right? Alex Orji. As the transfer coming in from the portal, he could be the option there. You also got Cameron Friel, senior out of Hawaii. Those are two guys that I think of that can take the leap for this quarterback competition and can take that mantle to replace Hodge Malik Williams for this UNLV Rebels team there to be good. I think UNLV's in a spot with these two quarterbacks that it could lead them back to a Mountain West title early on and even to a playoff spot. So I'm curious to see who's going to take that leap and replace Hodge Malik Williams in the quarterback spot for them. So who's going to take that mantle and be the next quarterback for the UNLV Rebels? That's number 1. Number 2, how is Corey Dennis scheme-wise, and how is he going to set the foundation of this offense? I know he's a good quarterbacks coach. I want to see what he does more as a play caller and how he's going to fit everything in and scheme everything up and set the foundation for this offense heading into the spring and in the 2025 season as well. I want to see what this offense is going to do and look like overall and under Corey Dennis. That's number 2 for me and for UNLV in this spring outlook there. That's number 2. Number 3, it's quite the opposite. Now it's the defense. I want to see how the foundation is going to look under Zach Arnett entering his first year as UNLV's defensive coordinator. How's the scheme of things going to look for the defense? How is it going to look? How's the foundation going to look on defense? And then what is the scheme of things in the playbook, and how is everything going to look foundationally under this scheme and schematic defense under Zach Arnett for UNLV? I'm curious to see how that's going to look and how that's going to transpire out in Las Vegas under Zach Arnett. That is the spring outlook for UNLV and what I got for them. Number one. Who's going to take the leap in the quarterback spot? Is it going to be Alex Orji? Is it going to be Cameron Friel at quarterback for a senior? Number 2, is it going to be what's the offense going to look like? What is everything going to look like there? What is the scheme of things going to look like? How is the foundation of the offense going to look like under Corey Dennis? That's number 2. Number 3, what's the defense going to look like foundation-wise and the scheme of things going to look like there? So that's what I want to see out of UNLV, and that's what I want to see going into the 2025 season and this spring. Their spring game's unknown, do not know, but I do know that spring practice is right now happening for everybody. So let's see what happens with UNLV heading in to the college football season in 2025 and how everything's going to look there. So last but not least, going back to the American Conference, a team that I think is going to be underrated heading into 2025 in the Group of Five and in the American Conference, that comes just so close to everything, is Memphis, is the Memphis Tigers. I think Memphis is an underrated team. They got some talent, and Ryan Silverfield is no joke as a head football coach. Their spring game is on April 26th, a late spring game, the last Saturday of April. You got head coach Ryan Silverfield, offensive coordinator Tim Cramsey, and defensive coordinator Jordan Hankins. I think that they got a solid coaching staff. They got a solid team. They came so close. They had some injuries last year. They came close to getting to the American Conference Championship, but yet going so far after losing to Tulane. Memphis is a solid football team. They upset a lot of teams, including Florida State. Even though Florida State wasn't the best last year, they still did good, and they still brought that presence there. They got some things that they got to work on in the outlooks, and then I want to see April 26th and more, and who's going to take that leap in some key positions as well. So without any further ado, let's go to Ryan Silverfield's team, solid football coach, and we're going to see what I can think of, and what I think. You can disagree with me in the comments on X, Instagram, and YouTube. Comment down below and keep plugging into Pigskin Frenzy. By the way, 4,600 listeners on this episode, on this show, and on this podcast, and on this show. Thank you so much for tuning in to Pigskin Frenzy each and every Tuesday and Thursday, and each and every week. We love you all, and we're going to continue now. Just wanted to do a slight plug. Let's go to Memphis and conclude our episode with the Memphis Tigers. Number one, honestly, the injuries. And I think that is what I'm concerned about, the conditioning of this football team. How are they going to be conditioned in the spring? And how are they going to be conditioned heading into fall camp and heading into the college football season? That's what I want to see, and that's what I am looking forward to seeing for this Memphis Tigers team. So how's the conditioning going to look, and how's everything going to look there for this team? So that's number one. Number two, who's going to take that leap at the quarterback spot? You got Seth Hennigan, who is now out of Memphis. He was a starter for all 4 years, true freshman all the way to senior, 2021 through 2024. He has done quite well for this Memphis team, broke records as well. He was a solid quarterback. So who's going to take that mantle up and be that quarterback for this team? Is it going to be Brendan Lewis, the Nevada transfer, coming in, who has the advantage, according to Tim Cramsey, offensive coordinator for the Memphis Tigers? He said that Brendan Lewis has the advantage in their entering spring. He's the starter. He's got the most experience. He has 36 games of experience and starting at Nevada. He is now going to be the forefront of this quarterback battle. So you got him. But what about excuse me, as I find him. What about Antoine Hill Jr.? Antoine Hill Jr. at quarterback, the top prospect, probably one of the most top prospects, quarterback prospects in history. What about him? What about Antoine Hill Jr. coming in for this team and coming in as the quarterback prospect? Those are the two guys that we could think of right now. Antoine Hill Jr. and Brendan Lewis are the two guys that are competing for the starting job. We're going to see after the spring game and evaluate everything and what's going to happen there for this team. So that's number two for this team. And then number three, running back spot, Sutton Smith coming back from an injury, and Mario Anderson's out. You got Sutton Smith coming back from injury. You got a dynamic running back for the Memphis Tigers. Who is going to help him at the depth of the running back position? That is my key question there, the depth of the running back position for Memphis behind Sutton Smith. You want to take it easy with Sutton Smith as he eases his way back into the fold, heading into the spring and heading in and getting ready for the opener for Memphis in 2025 season. You got Rashad Amos, redshirt senior, coming in, 235 pounds and 6'1". You also have Greg DeRosiers Jr. Greg DeRosiers Jr., redshirt senior, 200 pounds. You got him at the running back depth as well for this team. There's a lot of guys that you can put into the fold as well. Makari Bodiford, sophomore running back, 222 pounds, 5'11". You got some good power backs along with a speedy Sutton Smith. So what I want to see is who's going to help out Sutton Smith as he returns from injury and as he eases his way into the injury, or eases his way from return from injury. And then you have the running back position, the depth-wise to the running back position, who can rotate in and out with him and carry half the load as he returns from injury. So that's what I want to see out of the Memphis Tigers there. So that's my spring outlook for the Memphis Tigers heading into the spring and into the fall camp as well. Number one, the injury, the conditioning for this team, how the conditioning is going to look for this team. Can we have less injuries for this team? Number two, what's the quarterback competition going to look like? Who's going to take that leap to start and to replace Seth Hennigan at the quarterback spot? And then number three, what's going to happen at the depth of the running back position, and who's going to help out in Sutton Smith at the depth at the running back spot for this team? Memphis Tigers, they had their spring game April 26th. Go and tune in to their spring game and rep your Tigers. I'm curious to see what they got, because they have some talent on that team that could really make a difference heading in to the 2025 season and this spring. That was Boise State's outlooks. That was Tulane spring outlooks. That was UNLV spring outlooks. And that was Memphis spring outlooks. And we are out of time. Guys, a big thank you for taking some time out of your Tuesday to just sit back, watch, and listen to some college football coverage and some spring football coverage presented by me. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like each episode, leave comments down below. Spotify, Podbean, and Apple, all you got to do is just share around with others and follow on there as well. X and Instagram at Pigskin_Frenzy. Follow up the pages there. You're going to get news and highlights from across college football. You're going to get trivia questions on Instagram stories. If you want to answer today's college football question, as well as all things to date and exclusive content from Pigskin Frenzy. Guys, there's the website, www.pigskinfrenzy.weebly.com. For more on that, continue to regularly check the website for Pigskin Frenzy. Guys, big thank you for taking some time out of your Tuesday today. We will be back Thursday with some more spring outlooks for college football, diving deep into the Big 12 this go round. The Big 12. A lot of all Big 12 teams out of this one. We got Arizona State on tap. We got BYU, UCF, and Colorado on tap. Arizona State, BYU, UCF, and Colorado on tap for this Thursday's episode of Pigskin Frenzy, episode 209. This is episode 208, though. Guys, we love you all. Thank you for joining us. I am Joel Norris signing off. We will see you Thursday, guys. If you want to come to know the Lord Jesus, contact me on the website, www.pigskinfrenzy.weebly.com. Home and About Me page there. X and Instagram is at Pigskin_Frenzy to come to know more about Jesus, to talk to me about it. I will be gladly to introduce you to our Lord Jesus Christ, because without Jesus, we wouldn't be here doing this show and having the platform to do this show. So all glory and all praise be to Jesus for this show. Guys, we love him and we love you all. We're praying for you all. We love you guys. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening and tuning in each and every week. Guys, as always, we'll see you Thursday. Stay the course.